Hi all, this is Mario, and I'll be walking you through the steps involved in building out a fiberglass sword blank. Right now we're mixing up the resins. We went through about 30 ounces of resin to complete this. We use a standard polyester fiberglass resin. We get ours at Home Depot, somewhere around $20 a gallon, not too bad. We're using a piece of waxed aluminum foil for our base. This ensures that we get good separation at the end. Pretty much nothing will stick to it in the first place, and then we waxed it just to ensure. The process is pretty simple. Right now we're laying down the first 5 layers, which will be realistically half the sword. On the table there you can see the piece of steel that will be the core of the sword, which will also form the handle. I'll have room to attach to the hilt and a good strong spine through the center of the blade. Most convention won't allow a steel weapon, but for some reason fiberglass with a steel core works just fine for them. Alright, you can see we're working as a pretty good team here. We've done this more than once. We lay down the piece of matting, push it down, try and force the fiberglass resin through all the layers, and then anywhere that we're missing, we come in with, we're using 1-inch chip brushes, pretty much just a real inexpensive 1-inch paintbrush to push the resin around with. Alright. We line the blank up, get a good centering on it, and now we're doing the side pieces right along the edges of the blade. The reason we're not overlapping across the top of the blade is we'd end up with a curved surface. That blank, although is very thin, I think we're only using a 1/4 inch by 3/4 inch steel piece. We didn't want to have any doming or anything other than perfectly square shaped blank once we're done with this process. Total involved here is actually 16 layers of fiberglass, I believe. That's 5 for each side, and then to build up along the edges of the core we end up with additional pieces right along the center of the blade. Alright, so you can see I'm working quickly, doing both halves right now. Alice is scrambling. We forgot to cut blanks or filler for the bottom end of the sword. You'll see her cut it here in just a second and bring it in the screen, measure and cut. And all this does is fill in that 3/4 inch gap that's at the bottom of the blade. With those in place, I work the fiberglass into it. We're using fiberglass mesh. We're not using a woven mat. This is actually just sprayed together, and it's held together with an adhesive that dissolves in the fiberglass. This allows a lot more uniform pattern. It doesn't end up keeping that traditional fiberglass look to it, and I find tends to be a much stronger bond between each layer rather than a very strong sheet of fiberglass. We wanted a very strong blank here at the end of this. This will eventually be a Master Sword from Legend of Zelda. Total width will eventually be right around 1.5 inches. We're 5 inches wide on this. It's a lot easier to remove material than it is to add on, especially when you're dealing with fiberglass and such. We ended up running out of our initial guess, so I'm off screen right now mixing up another batch of resin. The total resin, like I said, was right about 30 ounces or so of resin. You get about 64 ounces in a gallon, so it took about a ½ gallon or so for this blade. Depending on the resin, how much you're using, and what your mix ratio is, it'll vary slightly, but for us it seems to work pretty good. Mix thoroughly, as always. Change your gloves regularly if you're doing this. There's no sense in having sticky gloves or anything like that. Alright, we once again laid down a new coat. At this point we're coming back in. Now we're going in with the 5-inch wide strips again. This will be the top half of the blade. So we've built up the core material alongside the blank, and now we're coming in. You can see how quickly that saturates into the material, and you begin seeing the center of that sword come right through. It almost looks like we didn't put any fiberglass down at all. As we work through, it's pretty much getting to the rhythm, rinse, lather, repeat. We've done this more than once, so we've gotten pretty proficient at it now. This is your first time doing it, take your time. We have about 20 minutes work time with our resin, with the way we mix it. We mix it right about somewhere in the 8 to 10 drops per ounce of resin. We actually use a measurer. I can't tell you off the top of my head what our measure is, but it works for us, and if you follow directions on the box, it works usually pretty well. We have a timer running off screen just so we know how long we have left until the resin starts to set up. So here's third layer down of the last 5 that'll go on top of the sword. Pretty quick. It's a very simple process. Total elapsed time for this evolution is just shy of about 20 minutes. And that's just me and Alice working together because we know what each other needs and wants when we're doing this sort of thing. Alright, here's the final layer going down. You can see we have some extra up front on the screen. We had extra cut just in case we needed it. I didn't know how thick it would be when we actually started applying the fiberglass resin to it. You'll see me working the last little bit there. Alice has her half done. She's a bit faster than I am. So now it's one last check. Look for air bubbles. You'll see me working kind of methodically there. Make sure there's no air bubbles left in it. If you have air bubbles inside your resin, pretty much is guaranteed to ruin it. Alright, here we are. Like I said, we wax the aluminum foil afterwards to ensure a nice easy release. Peels right off. Perfect. And you have a 5" by